Yeah, you mentioned economic development and also how a lot of the solutions actually come from technology. And I think it's worth zooming in on this point before we move on to best things first, because I do want to talk about the positive side of the ledger as well, the things that we can do, the things that can deliver a great ROI from a policy perspective. So there's this perceived tension in the environmentalist movement, we know, between economic development and climate action, right? But you've noted in many places in your writings that the more an economy develops, the more people typically can afford to start caring about the environment, the more they're willing to pay a price for the environment. And also they're willing to invest more in technology and developing clean energies. At a political level, you often hear Western environmentalists say, well, if everyone consumed like us, the earth could not take it. And then on the other side, in developing countries, you see much less overt environmentalism. And it's almost like the stance is easy for you guys to say, you guys have already developed, we deserve our turn at development, even if that comes at a cost for the environment. So in your view, if you can just summarize, what happens when an economy develops? Is it more polluting because of more consumption, or is it actually less polluting because of cleaner technologies and more care for the environment?
Yeah. Oh, God, there's not a really, really short answer, but I'll try to make it short. But on most things, we see as people get richer, they actually end up with fewer environmental problems. We have cleaner air, we have cleaner water, we've cleaned up most of our act. As you get richer, you first get more polluting, and then you get less polluting. It's called the inverse Kuznets curve in the literature. And it's very well proven across the world. And we know that, as you pointed out, it's simply a question of saying once you get sufficiently rich, you actually like more forest, you like more clean water, and you're willing to elect politicians that'll prioritize that. But this is not true, at least not so far, on emissions of CO2. So on emissions of CO2, as you get richer, you just emit more CO2. Now, they're possibly seeing some things like, the EU and Canada, other places. We've actually seen a decline in emissions. We've also seen that from the US. So possibly there's sort of, as you get very rich, you then start seeing declining emissions. But we're not nearly as certain about that. But I think there's an additional part of this conversation that we tend to forget, namely that ostensibly the reason why we care, for instance, about climate change is because of its impacts. Much of those impacts are on human beings, right? So this will lead to storms that will have a worse impact on people, on droughts that'll have worse impact on people, on higher temperatures that'll have more impact on people. But what we forget is that really poor people will have enormously bad impacts of all of these things, as they will for most other things. But as they get out of poverty, they get much less badly impacted by all of these. So fundamentally, if you're rich, you don't get nearly as much impacted by a drought because you can actually get your food from the other side of the world. Whereas if you're really poor, it really does matter. And so one of the Nobels I've worked a lot with, Thomas Schelling, who's unfortunately passed on now, he actually was the first to formulate what's known as the Schelling conjecture. Are poor people actually better off by us focusing on climate policy or by focusing on making them better off? And the simple answer is it's much better for them to be better off. Not only are they much, much less vulnerable to any climate catastrophe you can imagine, they're also much better off. They're not going to be...
You reduce their fragility. Yeah, you improve their ability to sort of respond to whatever happens.
Yes, but this is what we often forget because we're so obsessed with just talking about climate. They're also just not going to die from basic infectious diseases or from hunger, or they'll be better educated. All these other things that come from not being poor. So it's not like they were just better off on the climate bit. They're better off, period. And that's of course why, as you very politely mentioned, that most poor people find this to be an incredibly hypocritical conversation. Sure, it's easy for you rich guys to sit and say, oh, don't we have enough? I actually feel like I have enough. And of course, people don't actually act as if they are when you see them at the next interview for how much their wages should go up. But but you can sort of see why people would argue, at least in principle, oh, we have enough. But clearly, people who are really, really poor don't have enough. And I don't blame them one bit for saying, I would like some of that development. And I think we owe it to them but they also get the same opportunity to get rich. Just one final point. When people say, oh, everyone couldn't live like that, if we all live like Americans, then we'd need 4 or 5 Earths. It's important to say that's just from an incredibly flawed study of what's called ecological footprint. It really just comes down to this one point, namely that if you measure ecological footprint, how much of the world do you need to live your life? It is measured in terms of saying all the CO2 that you emit, we need to plant forests to soak that up. And if you do that, because it's one of the least effective ways to soak up CO2, you would actually need to plant 4 or 5 planets if everyone lived like Americans. But of course, you could just plant, I don't know, wind turbines or solar panels or nuclear power plants, and you would need virtually no extra land, and you could soak up all the CO2. So it's really designed to give you that result, but it's fundamentally flawed. And if you take that one assumption, bad assumption away, you don't get this outcome. So it's one of those many myths that we have and that we need to stop having.
It's interesting how there's this combination of, like, on the one hand, it's always sounded to me as a very privileged discourse, this idea that, well, everybody can't afford to live like us. I mean, we live like us, so it's okay, but we can't afford for anybody else to live at our standard. That would be wrong.
Yeah, and you point to a very important issue that nobody could actually get elected by saying, look, guys, we're all going to get poorer. There's actually some academic people who are arguing for degrowth, and that we need to realize, we're never going to be able to sustain this and we'll be much poorer. That's just never going to work in the voting booth, which, of course, is why a lot of people are then saying maybe we should be more autocratic like China. But it's never going to work in China either. The fundamental point is this is not going to fly, but also it's not necessary. There's a very good reason to believe that we can both be much better off and have much less environmental impact. And the real choice is much more of smart policy.
Yeah, and what you talked about, there's the wind turbine. So one thing that you do that very few people do when talking about these issues is you look at the actual measures and you look at the actual policies and the actual technologies and you analyze them. So if we look at the positive side of the ledger, I mean, one of the reasons you've pushed back against our brand of environmentalism is because it sucks energy and resources away from more, other issues, like you've talked about, the food security and the diseases and so forth, the things that we know how to tackle and where we can precisely measure the positive impact. But for whatever reason, they're not sexy enough, they're not exciting enough. Like, we lack the political will to actually tackle them and do the things that we know we can do to improve them. Again, maybe they're too boring. Maybe we feel like we know them already, so we kind of take them for granted. And it's not as exciting or heroic as, like, we're going to save the planet, right? So a few examples from your latest book, Best Things First, where you put more of a focus around the developing world. So some examples would be making known tuberculosis treatments more available, simple improvements to newborn health in poor areas, better fertilizer and irrigation of crops, more use of tablets for kids in classrooms. They're almost too simple to generate a lot of political energy around. There's a sense of, like, we know this stuff already. But you show in your book that measures like this can pack a much bigger ROI than sexier issues like climate action. And you and the researchers you work with have developed a method to calculate the ROI for every dollar spent on these policies. So can you first please tell us a little bit about the ideas and methods behind Best Things First, and then maybe, in your view, if simple proven policies like this can do so much good, why is it, in your view, that they're not pursued more proactively by governments?
Yeah, well, thank you. So first of all, I run a think tank called the Copenhagen Consensus, where we work with hundreds of the world's top economists. We work with 7 Nobel laureates in economics to try to find where can you do the most good in the world. And so funnily enough, in some sense, I'm very well known in the rich world for saying we're spending way too much and badly on climate. But I'm known most of the rest of the world on saying we should be spending a lot more money on really smart things like on tuberculosis and healthcare and on education and agricultural research and development and so on. And so in some sense, this new book that I just came out with, Best Things First, is just a statement to we wanted to try to say, where can you actually spend money and do the very most good? So we tried to identify the places. Look, there's a lot of things that can actually do, pretty darn good things in the world. And we know a lot of these things, but there are a few of them that are phenomenal. And so we identify phenomenal as better than for every dollar spent, you will deliver $15 of social benefits to people around the world. Now, it's unfortunately not a get-rich-quick scheme, right? It's not, you can't actually recoup those dollars because if you could, then it would have already happened. This is basically, for instance, when we talk about tuberculosis, you invest money in getting more treatment, getting treatment surveys better, so that could be apps to make sure that people keep taking their medications, and get a lot more people tested for TB. So we find the missing 3-4 million people with TB every year, which is the reason why the epidemic keeps going on. This is fairly well documented, and we know how much it will cost, and we basically know it will cost about $6.5 billion a year, more than what the world is spending right now. And the benefit would be that we could save about 1 million people each and every year up to 2050. So aren't we willing to spend that? I think that would probably be a good idea. It's not the only thing we should do, but it's one of the best things you can do. We estimate for every dollar spent, you would do $46 worth of good. How cool is that?
Unbelievable.
Why are we not doing that? And that goes to your second question. Why are we not doing it? I think it's a combination of things. It's certainly not as sexy. We've had tuberculosis for many hundred years. Tuberculosis killed an enormous, a tidal wave of people in the 1800s. Every fourth person that died in Western Europe or North America died from tuberculosis. So, that's just a mind-boggling number. Probably about 1 billion people have died of tuberculosis over the last 200 years. But then we got antibiotics, and it was no longer a problem in the rich country. Back, 100 years ago, people would move to sanatoriums. Moulin Rouge, I'm going to give away the ending, right? Revolves around the fact that one of the main characters has tuberculosis, and this was true everywhere. You had to go to sanatoriums, and they didn't work, but they were sort of a way to get rid of people with tuberculosis and get them to somewhere where they wouldn't infect others. And then suddenly we found a solution. Worked. But there's still 1.4 million people that die each and every year on this planet from tuberculosis. It is an eminently treatable disease, yet it's the biggest infectious disease killer. For 2 years, 2020 and 2021, COVID was much bigger. But besides that, it's been the biggest infectious disease killer for the last decade. And we don't care. Part of this is because most of the people who get it are weak, poor, often with very little political voice, right? So it's not rich people, even in poor countries, that get it, because if they get it, they get diagnosed, they get treated, and they stop having it. And you also stop talking about it because, unlike HIV, it's not something you keep having, so you can sort of pretend you never had it. In Kenya, just to give you one example, is the most extreme example. But if you get diagnosed with TB, there's a very good chance you're going to lose your job. You're also very likely to lose your spouse. So about a quarter of everyone get divorced because why would you want to be married to that kind of a loser? That's sort of thing.
Wow.
So of course you want to pretend that I don't have TB, and as soon as you get cured, I never had TB. But the reality is it's a huge and important killer, one that we could fix. And so we try to point out this is one place where you could spend a little money and do an amazing amount of good. Now, again, this does not mean we're advanced species, as you pointed out. We can only have sort of one catastrophe in our heads, but we can actually have more policy conversations in our head. Yeah. We know that we both need to talk about education and about health and about infrastructure and about North Korea and everything else in between. We can do all those things. So it's not to say that we shouldn't also do smart climate policy, but the way climate sort of takes over everything means that we often don't have these simple, smart conversations that for a fraction of what we're talking about in climate could solve all the major issues in the world. Just to give you sort of the bottom line of the book, it says on these 12 great things that we identify for about $35 billion. So, not nothing. I don't think you have that kind of money. I certainly don't have it, right? But and even Bill Gates kind of don't have it because it's per year, right? So he would run out after 3 or 4 years. But is a rounding error in most of the international conversations that we have.
Yeah.
It's a total rounding error of the $27 trillion I just told you about on the cost of our climate promises. So
wow.
This is a really, really small amount of money. For $35 billion a year, we could save 4.2 million people from dying each and every year. And we could make people in the poor half of the world about $1.1 trillion richer each and every year. That's mostly through getting them better education and getting more opportunity for economic growth. And that's about $1 per person per year for the 4 billion poorest people. How come we're not saying that? We estimate, on average, every dollar spent there would do $52 worth of good. That is a great investment, and that's certainly something we morally have a responsibility to do first.
So is it the political voicelessness and powerlessness of these people that explains the fact that these things are not done, or the denial, or the fact that, I don't know, the people with power and with political power, just their minds are on something else? Like we're
Yeah, it's a combination, I think, of a lot of these things. So very clearly, for most rich people, our concern is with climate change. It's with all our domestic issues. Look, and that's fine. Most politicians should be most worried about domestic issues, and that's fine. But to the extent that they're worried about stuff outside, they're worried about climate. They're worried about Israel, Palestine. They're worried about Ukraine. There's a few other things, and then that's about 90% of everything that they can sort of encapsulate. And TB is just not a terribly sexy thing. Oh, it's been there for hundreds of years. Likewise with malaria. But there's one other thing. So, for instance, on education, as you very briefly said, what we find is there's a lot of things that are not good investments. And then we also find there are a few things in education that are incredibly good interventions. But one of the things that are not good interventions is to just simply get more teachers or pay teachers more. And we know this. The best estimate is from Indonesia, that promised to double their spending on education. And actually did it, to much of their credit. The way they did that was basically hiring lots more teachers and then paying each teacher twice as much, which is an amazing outcome. And because they did it in different regions at different times, there's a famous pseudo-randomized controlled trial paper that actually evaluated, so how much did that do for students? And the title of the paper is Double for Nothing. So you can sort of see what came out of it. It's a very good paper. You should read it. But what it basically shows is you got much happier teachers. I mean, if you pay them twice as much, it's not surprising they're happy. But there's no additional outcome on student learning. And this is what we know from a lot of studies. So the real problem in any sort of realistic setting, especially in the third world, but really in many countries around the world, is that you have one grade, take fifth grade, you have all the 12-year-olds there, or whatever the average age is, all the 12-year-olds. Some of these 12-year-olds are really smart and ahead of the teacher, and some of these kids have no clue what's going on in there. Ideally, the teacher should teach each one of these kids at his or her own level. But of course, you can't do that with 50 kids in the class. And so you end up teaching it somewhere in the middle, and then the really smart kids are bored out of their minds, and the really lost kids are sort of, they'll eventually drop out. And very few learn fairly little. But the problem is most parents think, we just need to cut class sizes. But actually, it probably delivers a little bit, but very little at very high cost. So what you basically see is, cut it down to 25 kids. You still have the same problem. You can't teach the smartest and the most lost kid at his or her own level. And that's a fundamental problem. Pay the teacher twice as much. The teacher unions love it. And it can do other things. And I'm not saying that isn't great. It's wonderful that teachers don't have to be taxi drivers in their spare time. That's probably a good idea. But it doesn't actually deliver on the main thing that we want education to do, namely get kids to learn better. But we do know. So we asked all of our education economists, and they all said that by far the best thing is to teach at the right level. Now, a teacher can't do that because you can't get a teacher to teach even 25 kids at their own level, each one of them. But a tablet can. Put a tablet in front of this kid 1 hour a day, Not give the kids this tablet because then they'll watch movies and play games and all kinds of other stuff, and it's very expensive. So this tablet will be shared with lots of other kids in the school. But 1 hour a day, they sit in front of this tablet with educational software. The educational software very quickly finds out what level you are at exactly, and then teaches you at that level. The amazing thing is this costs about $31 per kid per year across the low and lower middle income countries. So that's about 10% more of what they already spend on education. So it's certainly not, out of the blue impossible to do this. And it includes all the extras you need to buy the tablets. You need to get the educational software. You need to lock it up at night. You need to get solar panels if you don't have electricity. And some of these are going to get stolen and get lost and not be used right and incompetence and all that. All of that is included. $31 per kid per year. The outcome is, and we've proven this in lots of different settings, this kid will, after 1 year, going to boring school most of the day, 1 hour, really smart school, will learn 3 times as much as he or her would normally have learned in 1 year. It's like going 3 years to school, but not paying for it. And of course, you can keep doing that, we assume, for many, many years. But we're just looking at doing this for 1 year. If you do that for 1 year, you have made this kid so much better that when she or he goes out into being an adult, will have higher productivity, will therefore have higher wages, will help the society to grow richer to the tune of about $2,000 per kid. So spending $21 to do $2,000 worth of good is a great investment. It's about $65 back on the dollar.
Wow.
That is, again, one of the many things we should do. And so what we're trying to do is, let's do the smart stuff that we know works before we do the dumb stuff that we kind of know doesn't work. It's really not rocket science when you put it like that.